Hi everyone, this is Sean McDonough and this is demo number 6, our final demo, titled Display Templates in the Content Search web part. For this particular demo, I'm going to go into the Display Template Styling demo link here. And what I have on the left-hand side of the page is a list of items from across the entire search index to which I have access. And it's shown, the content search web part is showing those results, total of 10 at a time, using the two-line display template that comes out of the box. And the results are really kind of, well, they're not very they're not very noteworthy. We just have an icon for the document along with a title here, and it's really kind of ugly. I am using a template that has paging. It's relative paging. It allows me to page forward and backward over the course of the results. But there's really not any visual punch to this. So let's go in and take a look at the we'll put the page in edit mode and go in and take a look at the content search web part. So let's pop this open. We'll do edit web part, and let's go in and change the query. And I just want to show you here. I'm not doing anything special. Again, the query text is it was formed from the keyword filter dropdown, just choosing anything that's only return items, and that's the filter here. So if you look at the results on the right, there are about 341 results across the entire search index to which I have access that fit this category, and those are what are being shown. Now, I had mentioned earlier in an earlier demo that display templates are what control what we see on the screen for results, and I'm using two out-of-the-box display templates: the list with paging control template, and then the two-line item template. List with paging is the control template. In this case, list with paging forms the container for the control, which is primarily the area at the top and then at the bottom. This is HTML that wraps each of the individual results. And then the item, the two-line item, for each item that's returned from the search index, we use the two-item template. Well, out of the box, we have available a handful of display templates that fit the control template category. We have list with paging, slideshow. This one at the bottom, Swiss Army listing block with paging, is one that I created. I started from the basic list with paging template and used that as the basis for creating what I think is a more interesting control template for displaying results. And I did something similar for the items. So we have a number of different templates available to us out of the box for just individual items. But these are also, many of them are pretty standard. Picture on left, 3 items on the right, or 3 lines of text on the right. Picture on top, 3 lines of text below that. Large picture. Diagnostic is particularly interesting in that it'll dump a bunch of values onto the page for the property mappings area. So this is a good way to learn what's coming back from the search results for each item. And if we expand property mappings, as I mentioned in my talk over this topic, each item template you can specify, in this case we're talking 2 lines. This is the item template that's specified. That 2-line template has 3 different properties that can be set: the text that is shown for line 1, the text that is shown for line 2, and the link URL. Now in this case, this is what's going to be provided as an href link for the first line of text. So I'm showing the title, and when somebody clicks on the title, it's going to take them to the path for that particular item, and that's how the link URL gets applied. And so each item template, as I change it, is going to provide me with different property mappings. So in this case, picture on left, 3 lines on the right. You'll notice there's a particular URL for the picture, the link, and then each of the 3 lines that are shown. And if I were to come over and show you how that looks when I select it for the actual content search web part. You can see there's an image here. We're not actually specifying a particular image to use. But the property mappings by default, as I had them set up, come across in this fashion. So, you know, I can continue to change this. Let me go back to 2 lines. But if I change this from list with paging to just list, you'll notice we no longer have any immediate paging. Let's get this set. There we go. There's no backward and forward paging at the top of the control as we have with the list with paging control. And then if we do slideshow, you know, it'll alternate between each of the 10 results in kind of a slideshow form. The reason I'm showing you all of this is because I want to actually shift over to showing you what I designed and give you an idea of some of the things that you can do. So I had a particular need with a customer to show the results from a search web part, but in an easily pageable way. They wanted a nicer, basically nicer styling for each of the items, but they also wanted the ability to jump between pages, not in relative fashion, but actually be able to, for instance, see the number of pages of results that there were and go to a specific page. So what I did was I created the Swiss Army listing block with paging. Let me go ahead and select that. And you'll notice when I select it automatically, we already have a noticeable change in the way that the results are shown. You know, I've got documents to which I have access. I have kind of an alternate shading pattern applied here. But look along the bottom. I actually have page numbers applied. And I'm on page 4, so page 4 is highlighted. And then if I scroll over, page 4 of 35, items 31 to 40 of 341. So what I'm doing is, based on the search results that get bound to the content search web part, I have the total number of search results that are there, and I know, based on information in those search results that's being handed back, where in the result list I am, and I have the ability to jump between pages. And again, all of this happens within the control display template, which has a bunch of JavaScript built in that is providing this functionality. Now if I go ahead and switch to my Swiss Army template for the item template, you'll notice it collapses things down. Instead of showing 2 lines, I'm only showing 1 line. And that 1 line in this case is the title of the particular document or item to which I have access, as well as a link to that item. So if I were to click on any of these, it would take me directly to that item wherever it appears in SharePoint or wherever it happened to be crawled. So I'll go ahead and hit OK here, save this, and you'll notice now I can click each of these results across the bottom. Now one thing worth pointing out is this is not, even though I put this together and it remains fairly consistent, you may have noticed, I was back here on result number 4, I clicked over to one of the result numbers. There we go, number 8. Notice that I jumped to 69 here. This is not entirely foolproof because the results that come back from SharePoint, this is it's internally documented that, you know, the results that come back are not definitive, or rather the set can change. It remains consistent the majority of the time, so that somebody clicking around the results is going to be fine. But the reason that you saw it jump up there is because of just the way that SharePoint presents search results. And that is a limitation of this implementation, but still, you know, it was more important for my client in this case to have this type of ability to click through results. And of course, if we click on, you know, PC Gamer July 09, it's going to take us directly to that result. So what does this look like behind the scenes? Well, you know, first of all, where do these display templates go? So let me come into Site Settings and go to the Master Pages and Page Layouts gallery. In here you will find display templates. Display templates, we drill into that and we go to Content Web Parts. this is where each of the content search web part display templates live. And you'll notice each one has an HTML file and a JavaScript file. The ones that I created appear at the bottom. Here's the Swiss Army control template.html. There we go. HTML and the item template HTML, as well as the corresponding JavaScript. The reason we have an HTML file and a JavaScript file for each one is because display templates can be processed by SharePoint's Design Manager, which is part of the publishing feature set. And the Design Manager, if you're not familiar with it, is something that was added to SharePoint 2013. It gives you a way to drop an HTML, a properly crafted HTML file into an area that the Design Manager has access to, such as the master page gallery. The Design Manager will take that file, process it through, and create the necessary JavaScript template that SharePoint uses when it's doing the rendering. So most people who've had exposure to the Design Manager have heard of it in the context of master pages. The idea being that we can let people, particularly designers, take HTML mockups, process them through the Design Manager, and SharePoint will generate a master page from that HTML mockup. Well, it also works in terms of generating these display templates that we're using. And so I'm going to go ahead. I've got a folder that has the JavaScript and HTML rendition of each of these display templates that I'm showing you that I created, the Swiss Army control template and the Swiss Army item template. Let me open one of these up. So let's take the control template because that's where all of the magic happens from a paging perspective. And I'm going to edit that in Notepad++. So if you open this up, immediately what you'll notice is there's a lot of commenting in terms of the body. And all of that commenting, if you ignore it for just a second and focus on the parts that aren't commented, you'll find standard HTML tags. You know, this is the end of the head. This is where the body begins. We've got script links here. And you'll notice I'm including CSS in here because that styling that appears in my control comes from a CSS, a cascading style sheet. And I'm dropping that, you know, into the style library. It's called Swiss Army _styles. If we scroll down, the actual container for the page, you know, here's the line documents to which I have access. I'm creating an unordered list. Each list item in that list is, we've got a title for it. And I punch out render group CTX. This is where the item template ends up running. And for each instance of the search results that are being shown, the item template gets processed. And you'll notice, again, lots of commented out basically script at this point. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I will in a second. Then we get to the end of the search result listing. So we end up with 10 results because that's how many were being selected for display on each page. And then there's a div at the bottom where I have two functions that get called. One to process the numbering divs. This is where each of the page numbers appears. And then the paging summary, which appears at the lower right, showing us that we're on page 4 of, you know, showing items 31 through 40 of 389, for instance. And so if all you want to do is work with the item and control templates to change the HTML structure, you can work with these HTML files. You can, you know, save the ones that SharePoint has in the master page gallery, tinker with just the HTML, leaving the commenting alone where the scripting is located, and work purely within the HTML. You never have to worry about the scripting, provided you leave it as is. Now, when this gets dropped, this particular file, when it gets dropped into the display template area in the master page gallery, SharePoint takes it and processes it through and creates this JavaScript file that actually is the display template that it uses. Let's go ahead and edit this, and you'll notice this is a everything that was commented out is suddenly visible now. That JavaScript functional content that was present in the display templates HTML form is now uncommented, and this is where all of the magic happens in terms of functionality for the template. So if you're going to change the way that a template functions and extend it in the way, for instance, that I did by adding clickable pages and additional content, well, then you need to know JavaScript or know someone who does know JavaScript who can work with the search results set that gets returned from SharePoint to the browser. But if I scroll down, this is where I added a bunch of functions. Client control get show paging. If we're showing paging, here's a variety of things. I set up a bunch of variables to track. These are all math computations to determine based on how many rows of results we have, and we know that we have X number of items per page. How many total rows we get back. We're doing the computations to determine our current page, how many pages there are, where we are in the results sets, things like that, as well as functions to build out get page number divs. This is where I'm building the divs for each of the clickable pages and determining, of course, which one should be highlighted. If I'm processing through a list of 39 pages and I happen to hit the page that is being shown currently, well, then I process that page a little bit differently and I apply a style that says, hey, this is the current page, so it's going to render with a little box around it. Otherwise, let's just process through and build a div for it that's clickable. So again, this gets generated by SharePoint's design manager. When you take that HTML file and drop it in, you can build straight JavaScript files if you want, and folks who are adding functionality may find it easier to do that. The design manager is completely optional. You don't have to use it, and when you distribute these templates, if you're just distributing templates for use, you only need to distribute the JavaScript files. But I chose to use the design manager as an initial way to process it through just to see how it worked. And so that's why I have both the HTML and the JavaScript versions of these files. So let's come back and take a look at this one more time. So this is what we get out of it by changing the display templates. I encourage you to, play with this, try and build your own display templates. I have a blog post, if you're poking around on my site, on how I built these templates in a little more detail in the JavaScript and the math computation that's happening behind the scenes to build this. But you can download these templates from my blog if you want to use them in your own sites. You're free to reuse them. And if you want to package these, it's worth noting that you can take the display templates, package them with any style sheet you might have. For instance, I have a cascading style sheet that you saw referenced in the control display template. I have that along with a .webpart definition for the particular configuration of the content search web part. You can package all of that into a no-code sandbox solution and give it to someone and allow them to deploy it to their site collection, and they would have a pre-configured instance with a custom look and feel of your choosing. And much like SharePoint has the the built-in versions of the content search web part that show pictures and articles and other specifically filtered content, you could deploy a version of the content search web part that shows only the content you want to show with a name that you've given it, some additional detail and styling. And like I said, deploy that as a no-code sandbox solution. So I hope you found this helpful. And this concludes both Demo 6 and this series of demos. If you have any feedback, please reach out to me and use the links on my blog. Find me when I'm speaking and presenting this. I'd be happy to talk to you. And thank you for watching and have a great day.